Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 187, the best of boundaries episodes. Well, welcome back to this month where, as you know, we're counting down the top 4 or 5 episodes that you've told me you liked the most, that helped you the most, and according to the most popular topics. So this week we're going to be getting into one of my favorites, and I think one of the more popular categories, and that is boundaries. We're going to be listening in on the 5 most downloaded episodes. Be sure to check these out and do a re-listen if you've downloaded them already. The links to each one are in the show notes, so you can grab them from the website at any time. So the first episode in our top 5 is about defining boundaries, what they are and what they're not. That they are all about your physical, emotional, psychological, and intellectual limits that determine what belongs to you and is your business and what belongs to others. So let's listen in to a short clip from episode 10, Defining Healthy Boundaries. Some of the examples of good defining boundaries are, I don't allow others to abuse me, either verbally or physically. I don't stay in relationships where there are no boundaries. I don't allow others to disrespect me, my time, or my energy. And I certainly don't allow others to tell me what I think, do, or feel, or what I should think, do, or feel. Here's where loving yourself is so huge, I think. What are your standards? And don't beat yourself up if you haven't really given this thought before, because you can do it today. It's so cool. Getting really clear and really solid what your standards are and should be is so important. And sometimes it comes from the work. Sometimes you have to hear other people tell you, whoa, wait a minute, you deserve better. And that's okay. Oftentimes when I do empowerment groups, I hand out what's called the Bill of Rights. They're called affirmations of some basic rights. I found them online a long time ago, and the author is anonymous. So I'm going to go through some of these. You can download the whole list when you sign up for the Tribe newsletter. Here are some of them. Nobody has the right to know my mind or my business or to tell me what to think, what to feel, or what to do. I have a right to own my thoughts, feelings, values, and beliefs. What I share with others about matters that concern me is determined by what feels right to me, not what they want. Now here's that detachment piece, remember? Just because they doesn't mean I. If people are abusive or disrespectful to me, I have a right to tell them so. And I have a right to ask them to stop, and I have a right to avoid them. I don't have to be nice to people who aren't nice to me. And I don't need to be abused or be disrespected. No one does. I don't have to feel guilty for not behaving as others might want me to, or for not giving others what they expect from me. So there are more on that list, and it's just a great list. And some of them you might look at and say, of course. Others you may not have really thought about, or maybe you've just been paying lip service to, but is that evident in your life? So the other type of boundaries that Cloud and Townsend talk about are called protective boundaries. Now, protective boundaries are ones that you put up and maybe keep up until someone can get their shit together. They're meant to protect you from another's bad choices so that they don't take you down with them, or at least not all the way. This is not always clear-cut, I know, because sometimes there are shared resources in a family like money, home, and kids, but it can still be done. Now, this is not meant to punish another person. It's really about you detaching from their choices and making sure as much as you can that you are not as directly affected. Some examples of protective boundaries are no longer sharing a bank account because your partner or your spouse keeps blowing money, won't put their check in there, won't help manage finances, and you just can't trust them. So until they can get it together money-wise and go figure that out and earn back the right to share a bank account with you, you may put boundaries up around that. Another way is asking someone to leave. Asking them to find a couch to live on for a while until they can take you seriously. Maybe putting an employee on written notice so you can have a means to fire them if you need to down the road, unfortunately. Asking your teenager for the car keys back until they can show you better grades or better behavior or ability to come in on time. And then there's the atom bomb boundaries. If all else fails, if people cannot hear you and take you seriously, maybe it's leaving the relationship, asking for a separation or a restraining order. Again, this is not to punish. It's only to draw a line in the sand so folks can get serious about what they want to choose. Everyone gets to choose with healthy boundaries. That is so key. So boundaries are about telling others about you and making it real. This is the truth about you, not about them. See, then the ball goes to them and they get to choose. It may be hurtful, but it is so respectful. Okay, now I want to talk about what boundaries are not, because, wow, I get this all the time when I do relationship coaching. They are not control. They are not control. If someone is simply telling you about them, then they are practicing healthy boundaries. Now, if they start telling you about you, then that is control. For example, if a friend of yours says, I don't want to come over tomorrow, they have every right to say that. They have every right to do what they want. Now, they have their own bennies and consequences around that, right? I mean, they may have promised you they were going to show up and they didn't, and you may not be able to trust them. That's their business. Let them figure it out. It's their choice. Now, your feelings about their choice are yours. Do you see the separation? Do the who owns what? So that's a little bit from episode 10, Defining Healthy Boundaries. Mainly about separating what belongs to you from what belongs to others. Your thoughts, your feelings, your choices, your behaviors, your needs. So when we do this work, we usually start off focusing on other people and how they're overstepping and how we need our boundaries respected and what we'll no longer put up with. We walk around frustrated for a little bit. But also when you do this work, you start noticing how maybe you might struggle to separate yourself from the things that belong to others. So the work is inside and out, and that's why boundary work is so important and so integral to having great self-confidence. So the next one up is episode 18, Setting and Maintaining Boundaries. Because let's face it, we can talk about them all day, but our boundaries aren't real until we speak them and, more importantly, keep them. Maintaining boundaries is harder when you're no longer filled with that adrenaline or, for some people, anger that helped them set the boundary down in the first place. When things calm down and feel better, so you don't see the quote-unquote need to hold that line, and that fabulous unearned guilt can set in. We also talk on this episode about why it may have been hard for you to have these boundaries in the first place. So let's listen in a bit on episode 18. That you have relationships in your past, and probably this one in front of you, where people did a really crappy job of validating you. You had to make it seem plausible enough and reasonable enough that you would deserve to say no. That you would deserve to want what you want and need what you need. And that's really sad. That's not your fault. It's all fear, right? Like maybe if I give them enough reasons, I can be valid. And I say, hell no, you're valid already. Your no is your no, and that's your business and no one else's. So try to work on catching yourself if you do that. The other thing that happens too, right, is when someone else is doing that, they actually seem less believable, less confident, and it starts to feel kind of yucky after a while. So try to just keep it brief and work on boiling it down to the bottom line to, hey, I'm so sorry I can't do that. Now, the caveat here is we may want certain people in our life to know why. Like someone you love dearly, that you can't go to their soccer game. You may choose to say, sweetie, I'm so sorry. I can't go. I've got this doctor's appointment or I've got this thing at work and I would really love to be there. We can choose to do that in certain relationships, but we don't owe anybody anything. There's a difference. Look at the difference between those two. We don't owe them that. We don't have to give them a backstory to validate our no, but we may decide that we want them to know why. Remember to keep them choosing. Remember, you can't manipulate and choose at the same time. Now, the mental work around this needs to be done first. So you might need to fend them off and buy some time and march back in with your answer later. The key, as we've talked about before, is number one, keeping you in a healthy place of choice and them in a healthy place of choice. So first with you, what feels best for you and why? I always tell people, what makes you not feel like a hostage? And what I mean by that is a hostage to whatever they're deciding to do or not doing. So you got to tease that out, pull it apart. Sometimes it's like pulling apart taffy, but pull it apart. Detach from their choices, especially their consequences. There always has to be a consequence when we set a boundary, or we're not really setting boundaries. We're just bitching and moaning and making empty threats. So don't do that. That's manipulative. Because people are going to do what serves them anyway. We all do. State it in a kind but firm way. Don't be wishy-washy or your tone is like unsure sounding. Look at your use of words. Essentially, first you check with yourself, what am I willing to do and why? What am I not willing to do and why? And why does that work for me? And why is that to my highest good? And why is that congruent with everything else I believe and so on and so forth? There's that accountability piece with you. And then you detach and let them do the same. Negotiating, remember, is that ball going back and forth. And everybody is in a place of choice. So setting and maintaining boundaries is essentially all about keeping you and the other person in a loving place of choice, which means personal responsibility for each person involved. Check out this episode and don't miss the bonus download that comes with it. I put it in this week's newsletter so you can grab it there. If you don't get the newsletter, hit me up on social. I'd be happy to send you one. Okay, so the next episode is all about how, in order to make big changes in our life, we usually need to start with boundaries. Without them, we can't say no to what is no longer working for us, to be able to do good things for ourselves, and to have the internal boundaries, aka the self-discipline, required to move through all the changes we want to make. Well, episode 148, Creating Change Means Starting with Boundaries, talks all about that. Let's listen to a short segment of that. You know, making friends with reality means making friends with cause and effect. For example, others may get frustrated and you may just keep changing. Life will keep changing and opening up for you. Embracing the fears and the feelings around that. And there could be a bunch of mixed feelings too. You could be so excited and proud of yourself for finally running that marathon. And also sad and upset because your partner feels threatened by your health and your growth and your new running friends. Being open to this and embracing the bigger picture of change and growth for us is important. Anticipating what you might run into emotionally and sit with what you do. And find a few people who can help you sit with that, or find a coach or a therapist that can help you sit with that. And feel the feelings and let them go. Creating change means setting limits out there and inside. Outside meaning saying no graciously to other people's requests or their needs, unless you've already decided that you will honor that. Like you're a parent, and of course you're going to feed your kids. But maybe you're trying to lose weight, so even if they want to eat carryout all the time, you may say no for lots of reasons, including your own work on your eating. It's a needs versus wants kind of thing. So saying no to others graciously, not acting out, not lashing out, not reacting. What we want to focus on today is setting limits with yourself. What I mean by that is saying no to what is no longer good for you. Like it may have been a coping skill that got you here, and that's fine. Maybe you stuffed your feelings and ate carbs. Well, that was better maybe than drinking or using or hurting yourself. But it's no longer working for you because now you're older and it's catching up with your health and you want to look and feel better. Setting limits means limiting the amount of things, perhaps, like we're going to talk about in a moment. Saying no to fear-based compulsion, the running we just talked about, compulsive eating, scrolling, chatting, TV binging. Saying no to these things or limiting them can help allow for the good things to happen, like time for a walk, more rest, better health, less anxiety, lower blood pressure, less self-loathing, more confidence. So internal boundaries, self-discipline, means setting an internal structure for ourselves. If you feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start, you are not alone, because here's the deal. If this wasn't a problem for you, it wouldn't be a problem for you. You'd already be doing it. I think the whens, the hows, and the whys are the way I like to look at it, and I think they're there to help you out. What do I mean by that? Well, in essence, let's say saying when you will do things can ensure that you're going to get them done. You don't just put them on a never-ending to-do list. You put them on the calendar to do Tuesday at 4 p.m. You put boundaries around the time and energy and space and resources to actually make that happen. Again, we just talked a few moments ago about making friends with reality and cause and effect. This is a part of that. And the reality testing here is, if I don't schedule it this week, it may not get done because I'm really busy. I don't have lots of hours, let's say, this week to get X, Y, and Z done. I'm going to have to schedule it. It also sets up a commitment. It's not vague, because we can be really great in being vague and saying, yeah, I really love to do that. It's one thing to say you'd love to do something. It's a whole nother deal to actually do it and make it real. So that's the when. When are you going to do it? What is most reasonable? This is not about controlling outcomes. It's about allowing for reality. When is it most reasonable and possible? And what is the deadline, too? Sometimes the self-discipline involves getting somewhere on time and doing something on time. Then here comes the how. Like saying how you're going to exercise will really help ensure that it's going to be possible to do it. Like maybe you grab a gym membership or a walking buddy or an exercise class. Or set aside how you're going to go running. Saying how much is a big deal. It means you're setting parameters for how much, let's say, you're going to eat, how much you're going to spend in a given month, or how much time you'll spend doing something. Time and energy are boundaries. Maybe saying why. You hear me talk about your why all the time because I think it matters. It's a big motivator. You're saying why is very important, I think, to keep you focused, keep you motivated, and to remind you why you want to back away from the donuts and nobody gets hurt. So getting serious about our reality and what it will take to make healthy changes involves acceptance of what is instead of avoiding it. This, I think, is a process, and I think it takes time, so please be patient with yourself and make sure you have good, loving accountability and a good coach to walk you through it. So since we're always talking about becoming more empowered in one form or another on the show, And I don't think anything gives us our power back better than good boundary work. Taking responsibility for our well-being is a game changer. Our next episode is all about that, so let's get a taste of episode 165. Empowerment means having good boundaries. Now, that's not doing 11th hour drive-bys like we've talked about here on the show. But you do have a right to change your mind, and you do have a right to say, I need to beg off. I just have too much on my plate on Saturday, and I just can't help you. I'm sorry. When this is not going well, and this is something we have to look within a lot of times, because maybe we're creating more of this ourselves, is you find yourself spending time and energy on other people's issues, solving their problems, doing the big rescue, running away from yourself. Others try to make you feel bad for opting out, or changing your mind, or spending time on you. Your selfish, narcissistic folks in your life are going to do this. The other flaming codependents need you to be involved because they're hyper-involved. Just start noticing that you feel overwhelmed, maybe frustrated, probably even angry at others for no reason. If that's the case, we have not put boundaries around our time and energy. And the other thing I want to follow on here with is sometimes we have to set these boundaries with ourselves. All right? Like your physical boundaries. Are you taking care of your space? Or is it stressing you out? Are you taking care of your things? That's self-discipline. Are you giving yourself time for your emotional and psychological needs to be met? Are you spending time with yourself to heal, rejuvenate, ground, journal, get in touch with your truth, focus on what you need to do? Even time to sit there and think about what boundaries you need to set going forward. Because if you have a lot of chaos going on in your life, it's probably because there need to be some boundaries set somewhere. Okay, so that's a sense of boundaries. Physical, emotional, psychological, time and energy. Hand in hand with boundaries is the concept of loving detachment, or detachment with loving compassion. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you let go while still caring. Sounds easy and simple. It can be very hard for some people, especially people who grew up in that first family we talked about, blur boundaries. Because the first thing you're going to freak out about is like, they think I don't care, Mary. They think I don't give a shit about what's going on in their life. And that is so far from the truth. You can care all you want. Those are your feelings. But they are separate. Just because you doesn't mean they. Just because they doesn't mean you. There's a quote by Abby Metcalf on abbymedcalf.com. She says, getting out of codependent or enabling cycles and practicing loving detachment is one of the keys to having healthy relationships. It means you're separating yourself emotionally, spiritually, and or mentally from another person and what they're doing, saying, or thinking, unquote. Detaching looks like you let go of someone making a bad choice, even though that's scary to you. You let go of what they think about you. You let go of outcomes, even though you've planned really well and tried to do all the right things. Life still happens. We don't get to control the outcomes. The outcomes around people, what they're going to do, not do, say, not say, feel, believe, think, or not. Or situations. Things go wrong. Things go haywire. Monkey wrenches get thrown in. We hit a detour. Detachment is separating out whatever is yours respectfully and is valid from others' reality, which is valid to them. So boundary work is making friends with reality, I think. It's about realizing that no matter what you do, for example, your partner will continue to do whatever they do until they see it isn't healthy or helpful. You can't do it for them. And no one can do it for you. I want you to take a moment and think about the last time it took you a hot frickin' minute to realize something, to accept something. That if you continue to put that square peg in that round hole, it ain't going to work no matter what you do. Well, there you go. Owning what is yours and learning to let go of control and focus on others is the essence of empowerment. Taking a look at how and when your boundaries are respected and when they're not. This brings us to our last Top Boundaries episode, 179. Being assertive means detachment and boundaries. Being able to set the boundaries, to speak up for what you need, but then to be able to let go of what happens after that requires confidence and I think faith. Practicing letting the chips fall, letting others be disappointed and perhaps even upset with you takes courage. Risking the unknown is crucial if we want to advocate for what we need and to be a healthy, separate person. So let's listen in to a little bit about this concept on 179. And we're not doing them or ourselves any favors. How to detach, honor your own boundaries. Expressing your own needs and feelings is healthy, and that is assertiveness. But then you got to let go of the outcome. That's the kicker. Speak your piece with an I statement, then let go. Know what is okay with you and what isn't. We can often blur these lines when we over-focus on other people and want to control the outcome. That's how people lose themselves in relationships and situations. Try to practice empathy. Put yourself in their shoes. In order to do this, I want you to think of times when you procrastinated, you didn't get your shit together, you didn't want to see the truth around something. I'm sure you have an example or two if you're a grown-up. Remember how hard that was? Do you remember how, God, you wish you had done that sooner? Then template that to the other person, probably in spades, right? That's where they are. Expressing empathy to them, like, I know this is hard for you, or I have to respect that you don't want to talk about this right now, allows them to experience the natural consequences of their actions, which is really important, or benefits of a good thing. Like if they're going to do their own thing and maybe we don't like their career choice, let's say, but they can go on and really experience some happiness. You can say things like, I'm so sorry that's happening to you, or you must be so excited, without inserting your own stuff. That is what's key. No one asked you. If they do ask you, you can say, I love you and I really want to support you. I do have some fear around the financial piece of that for you, but you're grown and it's your decision. So separate out your thoughts and feelings and needs, which are valid. And again, you might have to do some grief work here, and that is on you. When we don't grieve, we will leak it out on them. That's not okay. That's poor boundaries. Remind yourself why you are not responsible for their choices. I know that sounds like ridiculous to say that out loud. Why you're not responsible for their choices. But situations aren't always cut and dry and black and white. So it really does help to remind yourself why and why you're not being hurtful and uncaring and selfish if you don't bail them out, and why it just keeps the problem going and you're just going to hate them later. I mean, just all that stuff. It really does help also to talk to someone who gets it, gets boundaries, gets enabling, gets assertiveness, gets grieving. And finally, focus back on what is your responsibility today. Now, you may cycle through all these things all day long, and I want you to know that's okay. Don't be perfectionistic with yourself. It is a process where you fall off the horse and you get back on. You fall off and you get back on all day long if you have to. All that matters is that you get back on. At the end of the day, we realize control is an illusion, and that the only way to feel confident and to be assertive is to work on detachment and boundaries. This is really great work. It does not happen overnight. It will begin working on you. Pack your patience with this stuff. And the more often that you can detach, the better. The more often you can have healthy boundaries, the better. You're not going to do this perfectly. No one does. Well, there you have it. The top 5 boundaries episodes that you said you needed the most. It makes sense to me because boundaries are the building blocks of confidence and the foundation of any healthy relationship. Without them, I think we can lose who we are. I think we can end up in high conflict, emotionally unsafe relationships, and just generally not be happy in our life. Most of the people I've sat with over the years who struggle with anxiety and depression have boundary issues in their life, have had boundary violations in their life, and aren't able to be true to themselves. I also watch those symptoms go away as they really do some healing work around this. When I first begin working with my coaching clients, boundaries is usually where we start. We do a really great assessment of where you are, what you struggle with, some violations in the past that maybe you haven't worked on yet, and how to begin and maintain healthy boundaries in your life, both externally with others and with situations, and internally with yourself. So if boundary work is where you are now or where you want to be or want to get a refresher going, be sure to check out all of these episodes we talked about today because they're available at ownitpowercast.com. You can listen to all of the episodes right there on the website anytime you want. And also be sure to check this week's newsletter for the bonus download for setting and maintaining boundaries. So today we listened in on the top 5 boundaries episodes and talked about how important boundaries are for confidence, for healthy separateness in relationships, and for creating healthy change in your life. Know that boundaries, I think, is a huge concept that has so many layers and flavors that we could probably never fully finish talking about it. What matters most, I think, is to keep learning, keep owning, and keep practicing healthier boundaries within yourself and in your life so that you can begin to feel better and better. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope either you got some new information or maybe a refresher or a reminder about your boundary work. Either way, check out these episodes so you can do some great work this week. Remember to go to ownitpowercast.com and sign up for the newsletter. It comes out every Tuesday. That's where you can get all the bonus downloads. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.